Okay, everyone, it's time for the last session. And as you can see in the program, we have a large panel. So not to risk that we will be more people up here than in the audience, I will not take everyone up. So those who will come and sit up here is Elina Heikka, Morten Andenæs, Kristine Højmose, Ingvar, Høgni Ragnarsson, och Anna Tellgren. And this selection is based on nothing else but to have one from each nationality here. Nothing else than that. Yeah, and in the audience we have the people who are still in the panel, but in the audience is Jens Friis, there, Alla Räsinen, there, Kristine, där, och Tina Enghoff, där. And Nina, who is at the board of CFF, will help me with the microphone when we start off. And I would like to say also that this session lasts until 5:30, and then we have to break quite sharply since we have the buffet coming in and so on. But we do not have to stop discuss, because we will go out at the yard and have a glass of wine, and then we will have the buffet, and we will keep talking. So everyone who feel they didn't have said everything they wanted to said, just have trust. There will be time for that later. Okay, so this is the trickiest part, I would say, of the two-day symposium, to really wrap it up and to identify what has been the most important things, what have we learned, what is it that we need to sort of bring to the table here. But there has been a few things that I think has came up several times, even if there has been very different talks starting out in different positions. Certain issues have came back and discussion has revolved around them. So I shall try to bring a few of them up. So one of the things that I would like to comment on or mention on and then see what people have to say about it is the issue of the financing. It was something that Alla started with, that the project that you made 10 years ago was luckily financially, and the reason why we can do this thing is also that we have got funding for Nordic cooperation, Nordic money. So that's one reflection that I have done, that we are discussing, one part of why we are discussing the Nordic here in depth, and that we did 10 years ago and so on, is that there are funding for Nordic corporations. And that doesn't have to be a problem. I mean, good things is coming out of it, but it's still, if there had been other funds and so on, we could have perhaps, the seminar could have looked differently and so on. So that's perhaps more of a reflection. But I think also that Niklas in his talk talked about financing, how sometimes different systems of financing are colliding in a bit. That, for instance, that academic research cannot be applied in certain projects and so on. So how to relate to this? Big question, but I can turn it to Anna.
Well, I think you're absolutely, I agree with you that the financing, the economy, the money has been something that has several of us have brought up. And that's, of course, a good thing. But I should say also that another very important thing that I have been thinking of when everybody's talk is when you talked about your project, that we can collaborate. It's been very smooth and it's very inspiring to work together with different countries. We are quite small countries. There are not so many researchers on photography, but when we go out in the Nordic countries, there are a lot of researchers, photographers, curators, other people involved within photography. And I think that's also an important aspect of this Nordic collaboration. When it comes to, I have several experiences of working in Nordic collaborations with Elina, as we heard about our project yesterday. But earlier I've been in a network for researchers and PhD students. It was called Nordic Network for the History and Aesthetic of Photography. And we met once a year for, I think it was 5 years in the beginning, well, from 2000 to 2006, as I remember it now. And that was very, very productive. And several of the people in this network are now professors, like one of them is Mette Sandby, for example. And people have been using each other in different collaborations. And this was more of an academic network. So, and of course, it's possible to have money, as Niklas said, for doing more research. But you should also remember that that's not easy. I mean, you have to really have a good project and good people in that kind. So it sounds like you can you can receive a lot of money from academia, but that's also as difficult as it is to get money for a photographer or a curator to make that kind of project. But I mean, I think we could do much more collaboration also between these different kinds of photography, between researchers, curators, photographers, and that's something I think that I've been thinking of during these 2 days, that we should do more, actually.
From my point, I would like to, remind us about it, that never you have enough money. It's like it's always something what is lacking, and but that's my concern is that what I was talking with Jens when having a lunch, and
it was confidential.
It was. So I don't refer to our discussion, but I refer to another discussion about the same subject. in Finland, we are the. They have been running a photo festival there, and the former director of the photo festival was like complaining to me that in the old world, that first we had the idea and then we started to think that how to get the money. But nowadays it's like, first you have the budget, and you have to count how much money you need, and then afterwards you start to think that what to do with that money. And I think that quite many of us who have been working in this field like longer time, you can agree that something like that has happened in somehow our mentality, in our minds.
You mean that we start with where can we get the money and then you create a project, or how did you mean that?
No. Of course it was like not exactly like that's not the whole truth, but basically from the very beginning you must be like more conscious about the costs of the project.
Definitely.
Than how it used to be before that, when you could like trust that that I'll start something and the money will come here and there and there.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I add something? Just that all this fundraising thing is, of course, always the thing that can like extend a project, because you have to start working like 2 years in advance to get the money and stuff like that, which is a challenge, of course, and sometimes it's easier than other times. But I think that if, in my case, working with this project, it was interesting because we got a lot of money from the 2 large Nordic funds, and if we didn't if we hadn't gotten these money, we couldn't have done the project, because then the smaller funds like gave a small amount of money, but that's no way enough to do a project like this. And I think in Oulu, when we did the seminar last, we had a discussion, and I told a bit about how we funded this project and my experiences. And it was interesting because the former director of Nordisk Kulturfond was there, and she said, when I told the worst part of our budget, or the most expensive part, was the transportation. And she was like, okay. They actually didn't know how expensive it was to transport artworks around just the Nordic countries. That it costs so much money, and if you use like real art transportation, it can be double the price. If you use just a regular transportation company, it's cheaper, but of course a lot of more risk transporting art. So also this about discussing these things, but not just in our small group in the art world, but also like telling these funds and who support our projects that it's not just a joke that we put in like 40,000 Danish kroner to transport artworks to Norway. It's actually because that's how much it costs. And it is expensive. And if we have a small budget, then we use everything for transportation, because there's no exhibition if you can't transport the artworks. But that means I can't pay the artist, and I can't pay the person maybe who come and do a talk or for a seminar. And I can't even pay to print a poster, because you need the works most of all. So. Maybe the artists can't come and join the opening, which is also a problem. So I think also letting everybody else besides us know about these costs and what does it cost to do an exhibition. Of course, you can do it without any money. We're used to. Then if we don't get the funds, then we do a small version. But we need a lot of money.
Perhaps we could pass the question also to you, because you are actually the one representing a fund here.
Yeah.
So.
well, again, I mean, we're a very small fund,
Yeah.
but I think, I mean, one of the things that I think about is the fact that, at least in Norway, we have a very strong, like this Forbundet Frie Fotografer, which is the association of artistic photographers, and we're, I don't know, 300 members, I think. So it's not a big organization, but at the same time, what we're doing is working very politically in trying to get the politicians to understand that artistic photography is important. And so they're trying to get on a post on the national budget, you know? And one of the things that they're working on right now is, because in Norway we have for literature, we have when you publish a book, 1,100 copies gets sent around to every library, and so 1,100 copies of your book is automatically sold, which means that publishing a book of literature is not that expensive. You know? They're trying to do similar things with the photo book in order to show that the photo book is a valid means of expression and something. And I think that this idea of working, you know, working at a very base level, I think is necessary in order to make sure that things like this can happen. Like I feel like you can't have this higher level unless you have the kind of grassroots level. And for us, the grassroots level, be it because in Norway we have the photographers, 300 members, and we have the fine artists, which are 2,000 members or 1,100 or something like that. And all these people, every one of these pays membership fee, which is for me it's 750 crowns a year, but that adds up when it's a bunch of members, and this is what enables Forbundet Frie Fotografer to have full-time people working and working politically, you know, which I think is really, really important. And I think this is, you know, if the Scandinavian model is anything, it's that it is possible to affect change on a political level. And I think that's, I don't know, I mean, I'm really blank when it comes to how it is in Sweden or Denmark or Finland, or if you have a similar kind of situation, if you have a similar kind of grassroots organization. I mean, because it's basically like a labor organization. You know, it takes care of our rights as artists.
But you have quite an amount of money to actually give out. I mean, you have...
Well, this fund is, I mean, this fund that I represent is again against a consequence of the political work done by the artists themselves, going and saying, okay, well, if you're going to use our pictures in the textbook, for example, we need to get that money. That money should go back to us. They do it for journalists, they should do it for fine artists as well. And they do, and that money I mean, it's 3 million for us, but for the fine artists, it's a huge fund, and it really it's. I mean, I don't know how many million they have a year, but I think it's 70 maybe. It's a lot of money.
I think that there's like regulations on a European level that we have that kind
EU,
of kind of legislation in every Nordic country. But what is the amount of the money that is shared? I think there might be differences.
Yeah.
Ingvar?
Well, I can maybe talk from like an artist point of view. That I see it in different ways. That it's like project-based funding, institutional funding, and then for me, I'm also thinking about how to fund my own projects. And before I contact or get invited by an institution to do something. That also with my travels just here in Scandinavia, the system is very different inside each country. So it's different expectations which the gallery or institution has, and also what the artist needs to do. So maybe in Copenhagen, an artist gets paid a fee, but in Finland it's not like that. It's expected that he pays all the production costs and maybe even also pays for renting of the space itself. So for me as an artist, I find it sometimes that when it comes to financing and things like this, that sometimes they start at the wrong end. That the artist sometimes is the last person who is thought about, and that he needs to get paid, he needs to pay the bills and so forth. That so the pyramid is upside down sometimes. Yeah. That he is the one which is supposed to be first, and then comes the rest.
Because they're all dependent on us.
Yes, that's true.
No, but I think that's a very important point, and I think that exactly this But again, in order to do that, we need to. I mean, that's why I find it okay to give 700 to pay a membership fee, because it's like paying to the union. Yeah. I'm paying my union to do that work, to get those laws in place, so that when I go and do a museum show, I'm actually getting paid for it. I'm getting paid for my time, because that's not a given, especially. I mean, at least it's not in Norway at this point, and
not in Iceland
no.
as well.
And I think that on this kind of a level too, that I mean, if you're going to invite people and have a kind of, it needs to be. And I think you need to show the politicians that this is somehow valid, that this is somehow important. Yeah. Who's going to do that?
That's a struggle. I mean, to always show that this is important part of the society.
Yeah, I just wonder that about the is that like a hot topic at the moment in the other Nordic countries, that how much to pay to artists? Because I think it's in Finland it has been like there have been kind of uprise of that question during the last few years.
Yeah, in Sweden this is really hot topic at the moment, and it's been the last weeks. Okay. And I think my institution was really bad, but actually we do pay really good for the artists, but compared to other things we also have a collection, etc., etc. And I want to say again then in our project that the biggest part of the budget was for the artists. So I mean everything is not bad, I should say. But I think this question around money, that's something important and where we can support each other in the Nordic countries. But I would like to bring up another subject that we've been talking about these days, and we have been talking a lot about what is Nordic photography, and I still think that's an interesting question. Or I've thought we have been discussing what is photography. And I think that's also an interesting thing, that when we are trying to find what is Nordic, we always come back to what photography is, and photography can be so many things and different genres as we know, and for me that's also one of the interesting and fantastic things with photography. I don't know if you agree with me here.
We should not forget our extended panel also, if you want to jump in. So just let me know.
I'm not sure if I understood the question.
It was not a question, actually. A more a reflection. A question, a reflection on what we have been, why we are here today, and what you brought up. What is Nordic photography? Is there something Nordic that we can see in what the photographers do in the exhibition that we have presented, and what is it? And there has been different suggestions. We have been discussing the landscape, the melancholy, and it's difficult, but it's always interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's sorry.
Well, for me to get a question to say like what is photography, I think it's a very difficult question, because it's so many things, and everyone has a camera, and it's different types of cameras. It's just like did this work? This can just be photography as much as my kind of classical way of shooting on film and doing prints, and so just like and how artists use photography in different ways and videos. So I think it's more about when I think about photography, it's more about how the language of images are used, and how you can read them, and how you can put them forward, and also, like someone mentioned today, like posting thousands of images on Instagram, and maybe people don't have the idea of what they're saying and how they're using this kind of language, and so for me that's the question I ask myself, at least.
I guess that the question of whether there is a Nordic photography or not, I mean, the answer can be yes and the answer can be no. So I think, there isn't a way to really define, but a question that needs to be repost in a way.
Yeah. Yes, I would say that instead of defining the Nordic, what we have found that there are an amazing amount of different kind of photographic cultures with different topics and ideas and materials, and the ways to use photography, and I think that it's like in the contemporary world, it's getting like more complex all the time, and what is like very typical, I think that from the historical point of view, but we were like used to think that that we have press photography and we have fashion photography, we have photographic art, we have nature photography, a few categories like that, and it was quite easy. Vernacular photography, and it was quite easy to categorize photography like that. But now in this shoot and share culture, totally new. There are like new cultures are like coming up and like coming and dying, and like this, and they are so many, and it's like I think that there's like an urgent need among all of us who are working with photography to really try to catch the moment, and to understand what's happening, and somehow try to be the kind of mediator when in this society, when everybody's a photography and photography is discussed everywhere. So I really think that this is like it's a momentum for photography in a way. If we want to make at the moment. If we want to make our museums and our knowledge and our expertise visible, at the moment I think it's easier than ever.
And also in regard to the problem of financing, as someone said, there's never enough financing, and as Joanna said, that we need to work together, and there is very many good things going on. Another thing that I've reflected on here these 2 days is how often the reflection of the cooperation has been brought up, how important it is to work together and to use each other's networks, and it has actually been brought up in all different levels. I mean, the artistic level and the curatorial level and the organizational level. And of course, it is like that. And we were talking about with the show that you did, that next time perhaps you would sort of start with the work. I mean, that would be, even if you say you will work with solo shows from now on, but if you change your mind, there is a way to start out even earlier on with sort of working together. So this also brings me to the reflection of our organizations. And talking about the project that we have had here, the NPN, Nordic Photographic Network, which has gone on for a few years and have a few more years to go. It has worked really smoothly, even though we live in different countries, and sometimes we meet in one another country and we communicate by email and phone and so on, but it works well. And I think that I've been thinking about this, and I think that one reason to it is also that because we are 4 or 5 organizations which is quite alike. We are, I mean, the Nordic Photographic Center is a little bit bigger in some ways and so on, but that is something that has struck us when we have had our meetings, that our organization is quite alike in structure and in tradition and so on, which has helped the cooperation, I think. So one thing that could be difficult is also, I mean, if we agree on that cooperation is really important, network is really important, not least with magazines and all these kind of things, it might, I mean, what kind of difficulties will we may have when larger institutions try to work together with a smaller institution or with a magazine, which is another kind of structure and so on? How can we sort of bridge this, since we see that it's so important also to keep developing our ideas about photography, what it is and what it can be, and methods and theories and all this? Anyone? Jens?
Bringing it back to the economic issue, I think what binds us together now is our common interest in photography. But what separates us is the level of institutions that we come from. Some of us come from museums, and we are to some extent quite well funded. We have access to external funding as well. Whereas myself, the other part of me is a magazine, and I don't have any access to, for example, Nordisk Kulturfond, because they don't support magazines, at least not in Denmark. I don't know if you do it in the north. So there's a different level here, but the common interest, the common denominator of us is photography, and we all chip in where we can. I mean, some of us have a huge budget, and others of us don't have any budgets, and we make things happen anyway. And then I agree, yes, the artist is the most important, but if you pay the artist, but you can't transport the art, there won't be an audience to appreciate the very important Icelandic artist. And so there's a huge dilemma there, and it all based on the institutional levels that we have. Thank you.
I just want to add, I also run an artist run space in Copenhagen called Green is Gold. And for example, I can say that there we always go with the slogan or whatsoever: if we can't pay the artist, we don't pay everyone, or no one, I mean. But of course, I mean, that is often the situation, actually. I mean, yeah. But that's kind of, you know, to bring in some fairness in that sense. We do. Yeah, but no, I mean, if we can't pay a salary to the artist, no one gets a salary. Yeah. But everyone works for free in that sense. So I mean, that's the way. That's a way to deal with it. Yeah.
I just wanted to add that what Gunilla said, like this cooperation is very important, and that's one of the reasons why we started this Nordic Photographic Network. And like last year we had this meeting in Oulu, and we were discussing about this because the traditions and the ways of doing things is so different. So I think it was really important that we learn from each other like how things are in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland. And now I finally got the answer to my, because I was like wondering why don't we receive any submissions or applications from Scandinavian countries. So now I know the reason. Why should they apply to us? Because we can't afford to pay for them. So they pay for us. So we have to change, like Nils said, and you said, so we should work together, because there is Nordic money. So we should make them understand that we have different systems in different Scandinavian and Nordic countries, and we should be treated in a similar way. So I have to say that when we in Oulu applied funding for this week 37, and we had on our budget, there was a fee for the artist, but we didn't receive any funding. Nobody wanted to give us funding because the amount of what we were applying was so big. So we took away the fees for the artist. And you know what? Big surprise. We got all the money. So it's not like our fault. It's also like the system. They don't support Finnish organizations to get funding for the artist fees.
Can I just comment quickly? Without having worked in the business with real money for that many years, I know that in Denmark it has changed, and I know that earlier on if you tried to put in like fees in your budget and like salary, like for curating this, I managed to get a curatorial fee, which can also be difficult. You just put in salary and administration money in a budget was difficult, but it's still difficult, but it's getting better and better and better, so it is like possible to change it. You just have to be open about it and talk to people, and yeah, you can't expect the artist to work for free. You have to put in a fee, and even though it's ridiculously small and maybe just symbolic yet, then maybe it's getting better.
Yes, I think it is actually changing since, as Anna said, I mean, this is, in Sweden at least, it's discussed all the time. You can't work without doing it because then you get everybody on you, so you just do it.
I also have some comments on this. First, I would like to say in Denmark, there's by law that if you receive money from the state, you should also pay the artists. So, and there are two kind of, you have to pay something for showing the art, which is a kind of fee that the state refunds most of it afterwards. And the other thing, if the artists are working in the gallery, putting up their images, for example, they should get a fee also. So this is kind of by law, and I think the Union of Visual Artists played a very important role in emphasizing this law. And then I would like to say to Didi that I know of very many curators who works for free. I mean, my fellow art historical students, I mean, after they finished the university, a lot of them, they had, you know, really boring jobs during the daytime, 40 hours a week, and then in their free times before they got their kids, then they curated shows. And also a very good friend of mine ended up with a debt she paid off like 5 years afterwards because she made a show that didn't receive the funding. So it's just not the artist who works for free, it's everyone. So I think this kind of, the artist should be paid first. I think it's a little old-fashioned take on it. I think you should look at the whole thing as a kind of network or a hub or whatever and say, okay, if people want to get paid, we all want to get paid, then we should, you know, look at it and not say he has some interest and she has another interest. I think it's a common interest to kind of make a higher level, and of course everyone should get paid for their work.
Yes, I guess it gets for all cultural workers in a way, made a difference. Ville du? Ta den.
Yeah, I don't have any more comments. I think it was a very good remark. But another thing I would like to bring up that I think is very, very good with this kind of Nordic collaborations. We have been talking a lot about the Helsinki school, the successful label that has been very good for many photographers, and you could see when you make these exhibitions on Nordic contemporary photography or Nordic photography. That's kind of a label that can be used, and because I must say that Nordic photography is not very well known outside our countries. So that's something important and something that we can use, and I think that's also an important thing to make our artists, photographers more known outside, in the world. So that's, in my experience, a good way to present works from our countries.
I've noticed with the work that I've done with the Galleri Melk in Oslo that especially there, because what they've done is, they're about my age, the guys who run it. But they usually have people working there who are much younger, 10 years younger, 15 years younger, who are in their early 20s. And this is a whole generation of people coming up now who are doing everything themselves. They're really, this is like the new punk, this is DIY, they're doing it. No, but really, they're doing it. They're publishing and they're doing, they're really doing this networking. And they're doing it without the aid of the grown-ups, kind of. And it's really, the quality is, it's difficult to sort of assess the quality of work that's being made in such a rapid fashion, and but it's really, they're doing it, and they're putting it out there, and they're networking out there in the real world, going to book fairs, and, having, there's a million sites devoted to this kind of, self-publish, be happy is one of them, and they're, kind of a forerunner of all of this. And I think that if this kind of place is going to have any sort of a relevance, you need also to get in that voice. It's not enough that, we who are, grown up after with paper and, after the sort of, because, I still remember a time without cell phones, and just, we need the kids who haven't, who are already immersed in that new way of thinking about things, because I think that they're able to do things that we can't even conceptualize.
I'm Jenny Morelli. I agree with you, but I can also see that those young people who go to book fairs, well, they kind of fund it for themselves. Do you know if there are any funds for these enthusiasts that actually carry out the networks that we are discussing here today?
Well,
maybe there should be money for them too.
Well, we, for example, the Norwegian Photographic Fund, one of our missions is to fund photography that has relevance in the Norwegian, especially in Norway.
Not Swedes, just Norway.
I'm sorry?
That's only for Norwegians, right?
No, it's not. But you have to be, I think you have to be living in Norway. Either you have to be a Norwegian citizen or you have to be living in Norway. But we fund people doing self-publishing. Yeah. It's because that's, they're doing important work, and our main goal is to fund important work, be it, a 70-year-old or a 20-year-old. So we're lucky.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is working, but regarding funding, I think at least in Finland there are like photographers and photographic artists who are complaining that okay, it's quite easy to get grants when you are like young and emerging and promising, but then you have like a long career in front of you, and it's okay, you are like never in a position that you can sell enough to earn your living, and you need that kind of funding for the rest of the life. Even you are there in the very top 10 in the Finnish photographic art, which everybody's like expecting that okay, they are doing well, but the reality is really hard.
Yes.
Well, I can comment on, we always come back to funding anyway, because it's a very important aspect of all of this, of course. But of course, I agree with what you said, that everyone should get paid. But it's also a different thing if you are doing showing in a gallery like with Beate, or you're showing in a huge institution which is run by government money. You should expect different things, and as an artist you put different things into it, and you can choose what you participate in and not. And also sometimes you have to find creative ways to fund your own projects. So if I take myself as an example, I don't always apply to all kinds of different funds to get some money, because sometimes with these funds comes all kinds of restrictions, and you have to use certain amounts to do this and that, and sometimes it doesn't work for me. So I do personal crowdfunding for something, or I go directly to some companies, like for instance next summer I need to travel a lot, so I made a deal with a company called Happy Campers. So I get a car and a place, and I can stay and sleep inside the car, and we make a small short movie about this whole project, and this car will play a big role in it, so it will always show. And then they rent me this car for free for 2 months, and if something breaks, I repair it. Fair enough. So in that sense, I try to find also other solutions to find it. So I'm not lost the word for you. So you're not dependent on certain funds or fundings.
Yeah, and what Morten brought up, I think, is also a matter of an attitude that I think was very present in the Swedish scene in the 90s, with a lot of initiative from artists around spaces and do-it-yourself kind of culture thing. And I think the base for also providing a ground for this is actually that we do work together and create networks and cooperations and so on. And we have an example. I don't know if he's a punky kid, but I was thinking about the project that we're having here, the NPN, which met last year in Oulu, where the artists who took place, who were in that show, got to know each other at the opening, and now have also started actually like a traveling workshop kind of thing. Would you like to say something about that, Johan Wilner?
Yes, this is about funding from an artist point of view, Nordic collaboration. I was taking part of the week 37 last year. I was the representative from Sweden in Oulu, and during that time there were seminars by the Nordic Culture Fund, which were telling us about how you should apply, but it was most directed to institutions and organizations. But we were 3 artists there. It was me and Silja Leifsdottir from Norway, and Charlotte Haslund Christensen from Denmark. We were speaking when we sat in the bar how we should be able to take part of this Nordic Collaboration Fund, and came up with the idea that we could actually start a group where we could do what we sort of were missing, like talking about our work, giving critics, having a workshop, and just without institutions, without the curators, and just the artists doing what we never have time to do, go away and have a critic workshop. So we applied, and we were telling actually at the same time at this representative from the Nordic Culture Fund, and she thought it was a really good idea, but they didn't give us any money. But another fund did. So we invited 3 more artists. There was Kristine Leite from Norway, Trine Søndergaard from Denmark, and P. Olsson from Sweden. And we met last week in Lofoten, and during 5 days, and had a really good time, and had a very good workshop. We had time to sort of talk about the work. We have time to get to know each other, our different traditions. Everybody had a slightly different views on photography, combining this Nordic scene and the view of photography. We had many similarities, but also differences. And it turned out to be a great group, and our intention is to meet once a year in a Nordic country, and also to expand the group. So next time, if we get the funding, is also to invite Icelandic and Finnish artists. And this is something you can do as an artist. It's quite hard to do a project together because most artists, they work with their own stuff. But this is another way around it that you actually could gain something from. And I have to say, we are called Skreid. So you remember that. So, yeah, that's very important. We, when Cartier-Bresson and Robert Capa had this famous dinner in Paris, they was drinking the Magnum bottle. But we had a Skreid for dinner, which is fish, torsk. And it comes from the forn nordisk, also old Nordic language word called skreid, which means movement. And the skreid, the torsk, is moving from our countries. Yeah, you understand? Yeah, good. Skreid, don't forget.
Can I just add a quick comment?
Sure.
I think this is wonderful because often it's like we feel like we, as an institution, we initiate stuff, and like with this network and with the Nordic Exchange, the best thing for me as a curator, besides that the public like it, of course, is that the artists have fun and they discuss things and they feel like they develop themselves as an artist or as a human being. So the thing about being able to push, or in a good way, like inspire artists to get together in groups and do stuff by themselves, just like you started an artist-run space and stuff like that. It's really nice that it doesn't always have to be the institution that say, oh, shouldn't we do this and that, that artists themselves can start projects like this. Is really great, I think.
And I think that's a very important level. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough how important the meeting in person is for finding ideas and develop things, and the social meeting around art and culture and whatever it is, that you really, so much happens there, and a lot of political things can actually take place there. So that could be sort of one common ground that can be actually worked with for strengthen our bonds in creating things, even though finance is often low. I would also like, before we wrap it up, to touch the issue of the magazine, the publication, which Jens talked about with his excellent example, because at the field of photography, discussing with the artists, curators, directors, whatever, you often come to talk about which are the theories that are important right now for photography, which are the methods, where are the new methods developed, where is the new theories developed. I mean, where should we sort of go to discover this, and also to have like a fruitful debate of how it could evolve and what we need. And how do we do this spanning over a couple of Nordic countries? I mean, of course, a magazine would be the thing, in a way, and different kind of publications and so on. This is perhaps more of a reflection than a question, but I hope that we could keep working together more with publications in book form or magazine, and use each other's texts, and really sort of also promote perhaps our members. Some of us are member organizations, not all of us, but we can all involve our members of taking part and posting things. I know that Kristine also created a blog for Kirstine, a blog for the show, also to create a forum where these discussions can actually take place.
The platform is yours.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, there we have like an important cooperation to do together to form this sort of discussion or platform where things are happening.
I just want to say, now that you mentioned the blog that Kirstine created, it is called Nordic Exchange, and it's not exclusively for this show, actually. It's for the whole Nordic Exchange project. And I think we also, by Charlotte, actually invited you to contribute. I don't think you have done so yet, but you're still very welcome. The scrap group or whatever. And I mean, the idea is exactly this exchange thing. So, and also you have edited the blog, and other institutions have edited the blog, so it kind of passes around in this Nordic network. And the idea is that institutions and academies and all kinds of places that works with Nordic, especially younger photography, should kind of use it as a digital platform for exchange. So if any of you here have some material that you think could be relevant, please feel free to contact us.
Yeah, I also just want to add that a part of this blog is also a way to, I mean, if you're a young artist working with photography, maybe still in school or coming out of school, it can be really tricky to get an exhibition. And some artists, start their own space, but this is also a way to maybe present your work to a broader audience, and it doesn't have to be like curated or finished work. It can just be a way of showing 10 images and just saying, this is by me. So it's a bit, the idea is to have it quite informal, and that everybody can chip in, and you don't have to be able to write long texts and etc. You can do whatever you want. And actually it has many readers. I'm surprised because I haven't had the time to do a lot of, telling everybody about it. I was planning on doing a lot of work, getting this blog out, but apparently it did its work itself, because there's so many people putting stuff in there and many names, and it means that when you Google stuff, it pops up. So actually, it has its own life. So use it.
Yeah, that's great.
Just one a little bit funny idea, but okay, we have Nordic blogs and we have Nordic magazine and we have Nordic networks, but we don't have the Nordic Museum of Photography. So maybe one day instead of Finnish Museum of Photography, we are going to have the Nordic Museum of Photography. Yeah. Like you have the Nordiska museet here in Stockholm, but we are going to have the Nordic Museum of Photography.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. But
I have to discuss with Ingrid from Friis.
No, I think this is really...
She agrees.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we all do. But one thing when you're talking about this blog, one thing that is also fantastic with our countries is that we do, even if we speak English here now today, I mean, when you're writing, you write in your own language, and so it can be easy to communicate. I think that's also an important thing with this kind of Nordic collaborations, that we actually can talk to each other in our own languages if we want to. I know.
Except Danish and Icelandic and Finnish.
No, I know the problems, but that there are. If you think it's difficult to speak English, and some people do, then you can have English, and then you can switch to and say the word in your own language. Well, that's something we have. I think that's important, and which makes our collaborations also funny and interesting in a way. And again, I want also to say that we are small countries, and we are not so many, but when we work with the whole everybody, we are many people, and there are a lot of people interested in what someone is doing, and that's also an important thing.
Definitely, we are many at the field, and when we use each other's networks, we get even manyer, or how to say. Hello. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Hanna Modig. I just was thinking about, you said we have a Nordic museum. What would that contain? Because we were talking about landscape, and I was just thinking that most countries would probably also say that landscape is a big part of their photography and art. I don't think... is it just that in that Nordic museum, the only... thing is that you have to be from Nordic countries.
Maybe I was like thinking that okay, that in the Nordic countries, all the institutions in photography, we are quite small, even though the biggest museums, I guess we are the biggest, and we have like 14 people working there full time. So it's like it's almost like nothing. That all the institutions and photographic centers, we are relatively small. So but to have like one like major institution, I think that it could be for some use for many of us. Really to have like a museum, not like an exhibition space, but for example, like in terms of education, it's like I think that what the museums with collection you can offer for the students or researchers. You have the collections, and you can like really teach people to know a lot about the materials and all the history of photography, and you share your expertise. And for example, at our museum, we have given that kind of courses for the museum people in Finland, and it's really like hands-on courses in photographic culture and photographic art. And that kind of things I think that we could like have to have like even like a bigger institution. I'm not talking about that, what kind of collection and that kind of things, and exhibition policy or anything like that. But it's like at some point, it's like if you have like a bigger institutions, you can do things that you are not able to do when the institutions all are relatively small.
Yeah, I think that's really good thing that you can get money for things, but I just think it's kind of dangerous to sometimes set a label, like we are not Nordic photographers, and
maybe I was not thinking that Nordic in that way to that museum representing all the Nordic countries, but like having like one strong institution in photography in the Nordic countries with all the covering all the aspects of museums.
Couldn't that be a place that was actually changing location? I mean, like more like a foundation, so it was in one museum for 1 year. Then in another. I mean, it's not that crazy. Yeah. You actually have places like that in the world, but not so much in the Nordic countries, because we are very much into ownership. Mm. But I think it's not, I mean, like DA Beacon in New York, they have very many different locations, and they have, like some years they also have art in the public space that are not in the state of New York, that are kind of a DA Beacon project. Yeah. Mm. And you don't have anything like that for photography, so I would actually love to see that happen.
Yeah, we have to work on the concept.
And I think that if you're going to do that, you have to. I mean, I think that here in Sweden, there's a different kind of culture for it, but in Norway, private funding is minimal. There's no. I mean, the Nordic Museum of Photography would be the Nordic. The Nordic combined skiing museum. That would be much more important, and would get lots of funding, especially from private investors. No, I honestly mean that, because this is I think this is a problem area as well. How much in order to do things like you do in New York, you need that kind of private funding. So
I hate to interrupt. But I have to, because the clock has just struck mingling time, and we need to move out from here. But I just, before we rush off, thank everyone, thank the speakers, the artists, the audience, the organizers, everyone. I had a great 2 days, and I think we all had a lot to think of, and even more questions. So we will have time, though not with microphones. So now we shall all go out on our yard and have a glass of wine, and something will happen in here, and then we come back here and have a buffet and keep talking.
But first of all, before you leave, thank you to Gunilla and your team at CFF.